owned a number of C7 Corvettes and decided to make a little mini documentary of all the things I know. Keep in mind, this is going to be just basically a vlog, me walking around the exterior of the car, going into the interior, talking about the engine. We'll take it out for a spin. We'll do some POV type stuff. It should be pretty interesting. If you find any of the parts boring, be sure to kind of skip around and find the part that you like, because I'm pretty sure there's something in this video for everyone. Let's take a look. Keep in mind, I am available to answer all questions. So if you guys are interested in chatting it up, definitely leave a comment down below. There really isn't anything like it. I mean, if anybody can think of anything that is even remotely close to what this vehicle is like, I would love to hear about it. I mean, you get great styling, you get great performance. It really doesn't have any weaknesses. There are a lot of complainers that complain about the interior of the vehicle, for instance, but overall it's actually quite awesome. Very, very beautiful. You got large 20-inch rims, look pretty great, and then 19-inch fronts. And then you have this hood. It has this this swoop in there. It's like really, really beautiful. And you know, I didn't want to get the black one, but I did. And you can actually see a complete reflection of yourself. Literally in 2 days, the vehicle got dirty. Look, it's already dirty. Wow. Absolutely breathtaking. Gorgeous. And look at that. Quad exhaust. Really cool. Awesome looking logo over here. Yep. Then you got the brake light over here. It's like a little mini spoiler. You can get spoiler options, which unfortunately I didn't get. Look at those lights. This right here, these are gills. The air will enter and then it'll pass through. And depending on which model you have, they'll come out of a couple different areas, but you got gills here so it can breathe, which is pretty awesome. And some models like the Z06 or the Grand Sport will have an additional gill right over here and provide additional cooling to the brakes. Very, very neat to think about. And look, you got more gills right there as well. So the engine does get pretty hot pretty fast. So it does need a lot of gills for breathing and I guess exhaling air. There's some gills right there. And then you have the air, got the air intake. And no, this video is not yet sponsored by Target or Rite Aid or Penske truck rental. So let me show you what's under the hood over here. And then I'm gonna also talk about the hatchback. There's actually a lot of room back there. Surprising. How the engine is laid out is also quite interesting. Let me show you, because the engine is actually behind the axle, which is very odd, but let's take a look. So yeah, this right here is the star of the show, the LS engine. It's got 450 horsepower and pound-feet of torque. And this is actually considered one of the slower engines, believe it or not. And you see how it's behind the axle? Like, you got your tire right here, and the engine is slightly offset. And then what they did is they took the transmission and they put the transmission in the back so you can get much more even weight distribution in the vehicle. So essentially you get better balance while driving and that kind of thing. But yeah, look at this. Look at how beautiful this is. You got that air intake on the front there. It's truly, truly something. Some of the components of the vehicle are considered kind of rather cheap. Like, for instance, you have kind of minor cosmetic gripes. Like over here you have some peeling paint. So yeah, actually closing this is, it's kind of cool that it holds itself up, but closing it is rather hard because you can't really close it from this angle. You have to kind of go into the middle of the car and then just kind of give it a little bit of power when closing it, like that. The other interesting thing from going from the C6 to the C7 is you get this vastly improved interior. You have these beautiful looking doors. The interior is rather nice, actually. Cool looking seats, tons of room in the back there. I mean, I got crates, I got tripods, coats. It's just really beautiful. Like, look at this door. What on earth? And there's a button that you press to open the door. Look at this. Push these little buttons to open the door. The glass slides down. Kind of cool. So, push this magical button. And then this right here opens it up. Actually, there is also a button under here as well. Yeah, look at how much room you have in here. This is crazy. Like, for this type of sports car, there's really no way to get this much room. Like, for like its size and how it works and everything, this is really kind of a marvel that they were able to fit this much room in there. Like, seriously, absolutely amazing. Yeah, look at how much room is in here. Pretty impressive stuff. I kind of wish that they had like a little indent here where you can lay down or have a third person. That would have been so awesome. But you know what? I am not complaining because this is a great vehicle. So when you're closing it, what's interesting is that it completes the closure for you. It does not want you to slam it. You just kind of push it down like this. It will complete the closure. You don't want to damage the glass. Over time, slamming it could, in theory, damage it. If you're buying a C7 Corvette, absolutely want to get 2LT. If you can only afford the base model, sure, get the base model. Like for me, I could only afford the base model. But you absolutely want to get the heads-up display. This is an amazing feature that I don't have, but if I had it, it would be right here. And it's a computer that essentially shoots a light. It essentially shoots a light like a translucent screen, kind of like what you see here, but onto the glass. And what that does is it prevents you from having to look down at the HUD there, and you can keep your eyes on the road. And I think that's just a phenomenal feature. The other reason why you probably want to get 2LT, you want to have heated and cooled seats. That's what these little phantom buttons here would have been. But unfortunately, I obviously didn't get it. At the time when I first bought this car in March, it was when COVID was really gaining traction, and I actually got the car for much cheaper than what it's normally sold for. Even though I've been driving the car for almost a year, I can actually sell it and get all my money back and make some money on top. And that's actually one of the funny things about sports cars, is that they actually can go up in value. It's almost kind of like a house. I mean, obviously, if you're driving them kind of a lot, they may not do that, but it really depends. Like, it depends on the availability of the vehicle. Not all vehicles are gonna go up in price, but sports cars in general actually can. I've only heard about something like this with the Ferraris, but I guess it happened with me with the Corvette. I got lucky with my first sports car. What can I say? Wanted to thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below, and definitely subscribe if you like this type of content. Sports cars from Audi or Mercedes-Benz, they will think that the interior is kind of a step below that. I think it can almost match it if you get the 2LT or 3LT, because you get a much nicer type of leather interior. You'll get like better stitching. I mean, the stitching here isn't bad or anything, but it can be, you can choose specific colors, and the type of leather that they put in will be higher quality. The base model, I think it's quite nice, but people in general do complain about how Corvette has always had kind of a horrible interior. Take a look at the C5 and take a look at the C6. I got some great clips of the C6. The interior, I would say, is definitely dated in the C6 and really dated in the C5. The early 2000s were a very weird time for GM and a lot of American car companies. And even the 90s were a little bit weird, but not that weird. If you get the 2 and 3LT, you'll get better adjustments with the seats. You'll get more comfortable seats. They'll have more aggressive side bolsterings, and they'll be just a little bit more comfortable. But for me, the thing that I really wish I had was the heated and ventilated seats. For guests and that kind of thing, it would be nice. But the main feature that I absolutely wish it had was the heads-up display. And I'll show you some footage of what that looks like. I think for a Corvette owner, it's an absolute must because it helps you know how fast you're going on the road. It's so important. If you don't know how fast you're going, you don't know how dangerous it is. You need to always know how fast you're going, because at certain speeds, it just gets more and more and more dangerous. And that's really what causes the adrenaline rush, because you're like, you feel alive, you know, you're in control. And if you mess up even once, you can be screwed, because this car the Corvettes have killed more people than any other car out there in terms of like racing and sports car type stuff. And it's because I think of the type of crowd that it attracts. It attracts a type of crowd that can be more careless. It's not like a Porsche driver, you know, that really cares about every little bit of quality. But really what you're getting here is you're really just getting the engine. Nobody can really match this engine, right? Because this engine, the 450 horsepower on that engine is like, to start, is insane. That is insane. You know, you're getting extremely fast 0 to 60, and that's just the base model, because you could get the Z06, which has 650 horsepower, or the ZR1, which is 7. And really all that is slapping on a supercharger on the engine, right? Slap on a supercharger and all of a sudden your vehicle can be, you know, 30 to 40% faster. And that is just insane. And you can even increase your top speed up to 210 miles per hour. So let me show you what it's like to turn the vehicle on. There's an engine stop and start button, which is right over here. And you have to put your foot on the brake pedal and then push it. So let's listen to it. Ooh, that sounds nice. The infotainment system isn't bad. I have had a few pairing issues, but overall it's better than most cars. The system that's here actually is quite good. You can actually customize it to show various different things. Like I have it customized to show tire pressure, which shows the battery gauge. See, it shows the miles and the PSI. Oil pressure is important to know, because if you're losing that pressure, you have time to potentially save your engine. Little side gauges can be customized. Feature, push the screen button, and it just kind of goes down like that. And I have some headphones in there, some change. There's an additional USB port. The cup holders are definitely the worst part about this car. Over here you have, I guess, a pile of masks. Some receipts, you know, I probably should have cleaned this out, but let me just kind of move that. So over here you have more USB ports, and something I've noticed about GM and Chevrolet is that they have really nice doors. Like, these doors are awesome. I don't know who their door designer is, but it looks cool, it works well, very awesome. Both doors are actually different, believe it or not. So this door here, as you can see, it has basically a completely different layout. And the rim on there's like no rim on the glass. The glass is like curved. It has like this bubble that is really cool if you ask me. And the mirrors are kind of neat too. They fold in. And it's funny how they're both different. Like, you got the side button here, and then there you got the button kind of going upwards. And these are actually grab bars. So whenever you're driving with people and they get scared, they actually grab onto that so they can feel less scared, basically. All right, let's go over the infotainment system real quick here. So this is the infotainment system. It's pretty decent. I like the controls. I like these little knobs. They're kind of a cool design. They have this nice rubberized texture, which feels quite nice. I really like that. And I think it looks good too. It doesn't just function good, it looks good too. I do have light gripe with the knobs. They don't always, like, if you turn it really fast, did you see that? It didn't do anything. So you have to kind of like push down on it, and you have to kind of learn how to use them. You can't just automatically start using them and expect everything to work. It just doesn't always work like it should. It doesn't read the electricity on your fingers. It instead is pressure sensitive, which is kind of odd. It's kind of, I would say, old school, and it's a little bit, I would say, kind of laggy. So like you click and just sometimes doesn't do anything. You have to learn how to use it, just like these knobs. You have to kind of do like a firm click. And the speakers are decent. I have the stripped down speaker system. It is still Bose, which is kind of all right. I think that's a microphone. So when you're talking on the phone through the car, it actually can hear you pretty dang good. You got some speakers in the back as well. Some speakers on the bottom over here. I wish that it provided specifications for how much it's reducing bass and mid-range and treble. You really just don't know. You know, you press it and you're hoping that you can get to the desired level, but the bass is just completely out of whack. I hear that the upgraded audio system is substantially better. I'm really not complaining. It's good. It's just calibrated a little bit differently, a little bit not how I would expect it to work. I think it looks kind of nice, like I like how you can fold it away, right, when you're not using it, but the cup holders are quite cheap. There's this like centerpiece, which looks like the cheapest part I've ever seen in my life. It's cool that it comes out, and so you could have more space in here if you wanted. And then there's like a little latch right there that this slides into, but I feel like it's a little bit kind of finicky, and it doesn't really represent the Corvette brand. And there should be little like wings, little butterflies that come out from the side here like that to prop the item in better. This will definitely, like if you're driving kind of crazy, kind of how you're supposed to be in a sports car, your drinks do sometimes fly back, they fly out. It's not deep enough. It needs to be deeper, and it needs to have some side bolstering. Then over here you have mode selector. So if I turn this knob, so right now I'm in touring mode, so I'm gonna change it. Now it's in sport. It automatically changes the way the engine sounds. Listen. See, it's quieter. Touring is quieter in a quieter neighborhood. Sport gives you more power, it's a little bit louder. And then track gives you the loudest, most powerful experience. Trying to race, this is probably how you want to go. The characteristics of the vehicle change substantially, like the throttle response is just much quicker. The steering wheel becomes more stiff. So when people are driving in track, it's usually when they're literally on the track, when they're literally racing other vehicles. And apparently that's what you do when you get a sports car. I haven't actually done that yet, and I really want to. I think it'd be really, really fun. Now we do have a sponsor for this video, and it's going to be Unbeatable. They have supplied us with quite a few awesome car mounts. And this next one we're going to talk about is a cup holder car mount. So as you can see, I have the car mount right here. And the purpose of this car mount is for people that either don't want to mount it on the glass, they don't want to mount in the air vent, and maybe they can't mount it on the dash. Well, having a cup holder car mount is actually, I think, the way to go, because it doesn't really get in the way of anything, which that I really, really like. So when you insert it, this right here has like a flexible arm, and then over here you can tighten it. So something like this is going to really give you more visibility, because the downsides with the air vent is that it can make your phone hot in winter time, and then obviously mounting it on the glass can restrict your vision. All right, there you have it. This right here is a great alternative. I highly recommend it for the Corvette. I really like the steering wheel. It has really nice controls. This is right here is for the cruise control. You have over here volume rocker, so when you're driving, you never have to take your hands off of the steering wheel. I mean, the knob is right here. It's close, but it's nice to be able to have that there. And then these are your little selectors. So when you're using your heads-up display, like if you press up, it actually moves around. Like over here, I pushed up. Now I have oil life. Let me show you more in detail. So we got fuel range, V8. We got trip monitor systems, so if you want to see how long you've been on a trip, what your average fuel economy, 20 mpgs, and that's me driving kind of crazy. Let's see here. When I'm driving a little bit more calm, I can get the average up to like 25, 27. And if I'm going on a trip, like if I'm driving for an hour on the highway or freeway, I absolutely love this built-in computer system. It's the best I've seen in a vehicle so far. Let me show you what other areas are. So I'm usually in info, but I do really like performance. If you select that, it shows like different G-forces, like when you're turning, center of gravity, and which direction the G-forces are. If you want to improve your 0 to 60 time, you can track it. And more trackers there. Oil temperature, oil pressure, battery voltage. See, these gauges right here, I've customized them. I've put my battery voltage, for instance, on the side right there. I really like seeing my battery voltage. In my previous vehicle, my battery would literally end up dying because I didn't know how much voltage I had. I didn't know the battery health. We have trans fluid temp, are old, or if the fluids have leaked out, my transmission temp could rise, and I need to pay attention to the transmission temperatures. And then you get your horsepower, and then your tire temperature. When the tires are warmed up, you have basically full performance in your vehicle, which is great. I love that. The deeper you go, the more menus you find, and then the customizability is quite good too. I'll go ahead and select audio. An artist that I was listening to, he's pretty cool. All right, then there's also phone controls, edit gauges. See, you can select them, change them, like oil. I think oil pressure is important. If you have a crack in your engine, all your oil leaks out, like engine is done for, you won't be able to save it. And I think I might change the battery for trans fluid temp, because I think that's pretty important. It tells you when you need to change your oil. Pretty freaking cool stuff. I'm really paranoid about my tires popping, so I have this specific one selected. One thing that I love about the Corvette is that there's plenty of room. In a sports car, it's kind of unheard of. I mean, you have these deep pockets. Even this little area right here, there's like a little cord pass through. Look at that. It can pass through inside, and you can charge your device inside. Look at that. It's nice. It's very well thought out design. I can really, and you don't even have to do that. You can just plug into these USB ports here and do the charging from there. That's also a possibility. And then you also have your auxiliary in. Don't want to use USB ports to charge, maybe you just want to listen to music and you hate Bluetooth, because Bluetooth can be troublesome, you could do that. You want to power another device? You have 2 of these. Yes, this is just amazing. Look at that. Got one here. So next up, I want to show you guys how to take the top off. So we'll be taking this off and we'll be inserting it in the back over here, and then we're gonna be driving around. So basically, yeah, it does have the ability to be a convertible, which I find pretty cool. It is a little tricky, like the most amount of space, like especially if you're storing other things in the back. So for instance, I do have these crates in here, and you actually can fit the Targa top in the back with the crates. It's a little tricky. It's not maybe as super safe, but it can work. So I really think it's pretty unrealistic to not have crates in the back, or to not have some kind of storage system. There are other storage systems, and you can get like a wire or something to strap this to be a little bit more stable. But I find that it's pretty decent in terms of stability. I don't really have much problems with it. And I feel like it's like there's definitely a sweet amount of storage in the back over here. Like you can almost fit a person back here, seriously. Like if you absolutely needed to, you might even be able to sleep here, potentially. I might even kind of screw around with that idea and maybe try it out. But let me show you what it's like putting the top back into here. And yeah, so the top will secure itself onto these points here. Oh, and since I'm on the topic, this is where the battery is stored. You just lift this up, and then the battery's down there. And over here we have an additional storage area. I have like an ice scraper, and that's pretty much it. It's kind of like a cool little secret compartment. All right, so let me show you how to store this Targa top. It is kind of tricky. If you have a second person, it can sometimes maybe be a little bit easier, but personally, I do not have too much trouble with it. So you lower these. There's these little things that come out over here. It just kind of pops out. Yeah. And then you push this button, and then you literally just lift this up and then store it in the back. Probably about maybe 25 pounds maybe. Oh, there we go. There we go. All right, there you have it. So I've inserted it. There are these little notches right over here. You kind of sort of can't see them, but they're there. And then I place it down, and then I just push it down like this, and it kind of snaps in place. And then I got my crates right there. And so there's basically a perfect amount of room. Now, one thing I forgot to do is roll down the windows. You definitely want to do that. Definitely want to remember to do that, because it could actually damage the window. All right, and never slam it. Just let it go, and then it closes itself. There we go. All right, let's go for a ride. So one last warning about this Targa top. It could cut your head off if you don't properly secure it. I don't recommend doing what I'm doing here. It is potentially dangerous at high speeds. All right, so there's probably gonna be somebody that's gonna try to race me. We'll see how that goes. Very beautiful. It sounds very quiet on the road. They hide the engine away. Very modest, very quiet. If you have more money, you definitely want to either get yourself the convertible, because it's way more fun to just push the button and not have to worry about this. However, the Targa top, which I have, does make it look better because you have more room in the back, and obviously it just looks like a better vehicle. But make sure that if you are getting a C7, that you get the Z51 package. It'll give you additional cooling on this side over here, which is nice. You'll get magnetic ride control. So essentially the suspension will be running on magnets, and you can tweak it. If you want it to be soft when you're driving around and the roads are horrible, like what you see here, like the roads look like absolute crap here, but basically it would make it softer and it would make it quieter too. So like if you're going on a long trip and you don't want to have to worry. You could also tweak it for better performance when you're driving on the track. You also get a completely different transmission with the Z51 package. So whatever you do, make sure that you get the Z51 package. Almost every single Corvette owner that buys a Corvette that does not get the Z51 package regrets it in the end, because you get much better transmission. The transmission will have different types of gear ratios, and it'll just operate way, 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 way better. So if you can, get that. Some people have tried to add the upgrades afterwards. It's just too hard to do that. I do not recommend doing that. You're gonna have to take it apart. I mean, who wants to deal with all that nonsense? It's just a huge pain in the ass. So just get what you need, and yeah, that way you don't have to upgrade anything. Although you can get upgrades, it'll be annoying in the future, but it could be more fun once you get used to it. So something that I noticed, because I don't have the Z51 package, when I'm trying to accelerate, it is more like a muscle car, where it jerks you around, where you feel kind of like you're in danger, which actually is one of the benefits. It's one of the fun things about having a American muscle car. What's weird though is that the Corvette it has European styling with American muscle. So that has never been done before. It is truly an amazing thing. Woo! Yeah, baby. That is fun. Yeah, there's definitely something awesome about being able to accelerate to 60 miles per hour in 3 seconds. It's just, well, it's more like 4 seconds, but still very fun, very awesome. Now, being able to drive around with the top down, it's just so much more fun to have the open air experience, to be able to breathe the air, to be able to look up and see the sky, and just to kind of look around. You just feel like you're more connected with the world when you have the top down. It's got kids driving around freaking motorcycles. Oh, that did not sound good. So cool, it absorbs whatever color is in the area. So if it's really blue outside, it'll turn blue. And the trees, seeing the reflection of the tree is just absolutely phenomenal. Wow. So the first thing you notice about the Corvettes is that the drive is kind of rough, but it's really, really fun. That's the main reason why you get a sports car, because it's actually extremely, extremely fun. All of the different Corvettes basically perform differently. Like, none of them perform the same. First time you drive one of these, it's like completely night and day. There's nothing like driving a Corvette. Really, maybe nothing like driving a sports car, because sports cars in general are just, they're just completely different from driving sedans, from driving vans or SUVs. They're really just not the same. Part of what makes a sports car fun is that you get basically an insane amount of power, right? You get really good handling, so your handling is just phenomenal. And the Corvettes in particular actually sound really nice too. Like, they got a great exhaust. But I think most of the sound is probably coming from, I think, the engine. Well, it's probably a combination of engine plus exhaust. It's considered kind of a quieter Corvette. I think the C6 was a little bit louder than the C7, but the C7 gets loud when you start going quick. What's really crazy is the really good gas mileage you get with this vehicle. So most people think that the V8, you're gonna get like terrible gas mileage. Totally not true. You can get anywhere from, the best I've seen is 42 mpgs, so 42 miles per gallon. Or if you drive kind of crazy, kind of like a maniac, you could get about maybe 16, 18, maybe 20 mpgs. If you just kind of drive crazy every now and then, maybe you can get like 26 mpgs. Really help you guys out. Like, if you're stuck between making like a specific decision, I could definitely help you out. So one of the first questions people ask is, you know, which Corvette should you get? Well, it really depends on how much money you have and what kind of like level of performance you want to get. If you want to get like the best performance, you can get like a C5, a C6, or a C7, and then if you have like a lot of money, a C8. But if you don't have a lot of money, oh man, that's nice. If you don't have a lot of money, you can get a C4 for maybe about $10,000, maybe $8,000. You can get C3s for about $5,000, $6,000, and even C5s you can get for about $15,000. So really, there's a Corvette for every type of budget. It really doesn't matter like kind of how much money you make. You can maybe start with the C3 and you can work your way up to like the C4, you know, after you pay off your C3 or whatever. Or you can get like, let's say, a C4, and then you can add specific upgrades. You can upgrade the engine, you can upgrade, you know, the exhaust, you can add different like body panels to achieve different things. You can get different types of tires. There's kind of a lot of different things you can do. Like, the Corvette modding community is pretty cool. Somebody gets a Corvette, they become like a Corvette fan for life. So that's pretty awesome. And some of the Corvette prices have gotten really insane. Like, for instance, C7 Corvette has gone up in price by anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000, and the prices are changing almost daily. The vehicle itself is it's actually becoming kind of more rare than you'd expect. So the expensive Corvettes, the supply is shrinking right now. But the cheaper Corvettes like the C4, C5, and C6, those actually could be dropping in price. So it really kind of depends on what you're looking for. My best advice is get the Corvette that you can afford, and then when you're ready, you can either upgrade it or just get a completely different, newer Corvette. But regardless of which one you get, you're definitely going to get like really good handling, you're going to get great performance, and you really don't meet too many Corvette owners that regret buying their Corvettes. Like when I was in the market for a new vehicle, I literally tried every single brand. I went out there, I went to every single car dealership, I test drove Lexus, Acura, Honda, I test drove Fords, pretty much any car I can get my hands on, I test drove it. I tested out the C6 on Turo, and I drove it around. I rented it from a guy who runs a mini mart called Milano Mart. I'll have links in the description if you guys ever want to rent any of his vehicles, but really cool guy, real nice. And yeah, the Corvettes leave such a crazy impression on you. It's quite insane the kind of impression that it leaves on you. Like, it's just cool that you can get a vehicle that basically gets you friends. Like I was driving around, and actually this group of people, they had I think like 3 or 4 cars. They saw my car and they were waving. They're like, hey, come over. And I checked it out, and they invited me to their like little car meet that had like 200 plus people that go there. I was like, man, this is crazy. This is so fun. This is so interesting that the car could just get you friends. Whoa, check out that exhaust. Holy shit, man, that is crazy looking. Whoa, so how does this work? Does that actually serve a purpose?
It's just glass pipes. I'm actually gonna tune it, and when I put a little shitty turbo in it, I'll tune it and it's gonna shoot flames.
Damn, that is awesome. That is so cool, man. Yeah, I've been thinking about switching mine out for a wide body version or doing like work on it and stuff, but I'm like, it's too much work. It would be easier just to sell it and get something that already has it. But man, I give you props for actually doing the modifications and stuff.
Yeah, 3.5 inch down pipe all the way down the bottom.
So cool. And what's this right here, man? These like little
titty column stickers for this guy right here.
The car is known for losing control if you're a novice driver. And there's things like fishtail that you have to worry about because it's rear wheel drive. So you're kind of like a rocket. You're being pushed from behind. And because of that, it's kind of tricky to drive around, right? So one thing that I really like is when you put the vehicle in reverse, it has a really nice backup camera that shows you exactly where you need to be at all times. So I think it's quite nice. And when you turn the steering wheel, it turns to where you're going. I think that's just freaking so smart. I think all cars need that. Now, if you get the Grand Sport or the Z06 package, you'll actually have cameras in the front as well. So that is one of the downsides of not having Grand Sport or Z06 models, is that you really just don't get a front parking cameras, which are actually super important because if you're parking in a tight space, it might be kind of hard to tell if you're about to hit something because the front is longer than the back. The other thing I really like is when you've parked, there's these little lights that turn on. They turn on nice and slow, and they give you enough lighting so you can see. I'm basically in a dark garage. You get a little bit of lights in the back here, which everything eventually dims, but it's nice because you can see it. And there's like this little nice glow that you get as well. Kind of a cool little touch. I like it quite a bit. And then the engine start stop button also glows. Kind of cool. Really like it a lot. The C8 is about double the cost. It's just automatically double. You do get a completely different driving experience. From what I know, the C8 it's very European. It's much more smooth. And I'm not really sure how much I'm gonna like it, because the C8, I mean, it basically kind of drives similar to like a Ferrari. I mean, you're not gonna have that insane Ferrari quality, but you know, you're gonna have the refinement and the fluidity of how it drives. Yes, it's gonna have quicker acceleration, you know, 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. You know, stuff like that is pretty awesome. But you're gonna have just much better handling. Like, we're talking, like, the handling is it's just gonna be great. Really, there's nothing to complain about. Yeah, but it's not a muscle car. That's what, like, some Corvette owners think that it's just too different, that it's not a true, like, some people think it's too radical of a change from C7 to C8. My driving has actually improved quite a bit because I'm, in a sense, processing everything a little bit quicker, because I'm pushing myself to the limits, right, with my driving skill, that I can essentially, I can get out of annoying situations. Like if there is, for instance, like a lot of traffic, I can just weave myself kind of around them and just bypass all of them. So it kind of depends on the situation, but overall I feel a lot more confident. Like, yes, I'm also more careful, but I'm also more confident at the same time. The transmission it just sometimes does the weirdest things. Like, it doesn't necessarily shift at the right time, which is kind of a pain in the ass. So sometimes it's like downshifting or upshifting, and not really in a good way. I think I would like to do maybe mods someday, but I find mods interesting because, can you trust them? That's what I want to ask you guys. Can you trust mods? Because I'm not going to trust some random company to install something in my car that could fail. That is something that freaks me out, because I have a feeling that that's like actually pretty probable. Like, it takes so much time to refine the manufacturing and to make sure that the parts and stuff don't fail. I am here for you guys. If you have any questions at all, I may be getting a C6 and a C5 very soon. I'll be answering questions about all Corvettes and trim levels and everything you need to know, even other types of cars. So if you're interested in that, definitely subscribe. Definitely ask me questions, because I am here for you guys.
How to buy a used vehicle from a dealership or a private seller, with cash or with financing. Well, this video will be a complete video on how to purchase a vehicle, whether it's new or used, but it will mostly be talking about used, because that's where it gets a little complicated. And we'll go over what you need to look for when you're examining the physical vehicles themselves, and how to deal with the dealerships and the private sellers. So first, you set your budget. You go out to the dealership that you want to check out, or the private seller, and realistically speaking, if you're buying a used vehicle, just buy from a private seller, because you're always going to get a better deal from a private seller. They also take better care of their vehicles, and they're going to end up charging you less. So do that if you can. But if you can't and you're at a dealership, arrive and start by examining the actual vehicle. So the first thing you're checking is for the fit and finish of the body panels, and you're just looking for any type of damage that sticks out like a sore thumb. I examine the paint job. I look at the lights on the car to see if there's any sagging lights or sagging panels. Like here you can see on the left side there's a sagging bumper, most likely from previous damage, and the wheels are pretty old and actually need to be replaced pretty much immediately. Driving on these is kind of dangerous. So you're checking for anything that is going to give you negotiation power, because whatever price they say that it's listed as is actually an insane markup, because they got the vehicle for $4,000 to $8,000 less. You just need negotiation power, because if you can't negotiate, then you're going to have to pay the sticker price, and most likely they might even tack on other bogus charges. So you have to learn how to defend yourself while you're buying a used vehicle. When it comes to checking out the tires, you can look at the physical tire and see if there's any of these stretch marks, and that's how you'll know whether the tire is old or not. And also the tire age will be written right on the tire. You can also use like a penny, and if you put the penny in between the grooves of the tread wear, and if the head is exposed of the president, that's how you'll know that it's time to replace those wheels. Generally, if the wheels are 4 to 6 years old, they're getting pretty old, they need to be replaced immediately. Examine each component of the vehicle. So you start by looking at the body, then you look at the tires, then you start to go inside the vehicle, you look at the seats, you look at the door. You're just looking at anything that might need some work. And actually, if something is messed up, you can ask for a discount based on how much it'll cost you to fix it, because they didn't fix it, so they're going to pass on the hassle to you. So you have to tell them that you need some kind of discount. Now, there are some dealerships like Carmax that don't actually provide any discounts at all, and you can't really negotiate with them because they just always have good deals regardless. They're a little bit expensive, but at least you always get a great vehicle. The problem with small-time dealerships is that you might get a terrible deal with a terrible vehicle, so there's just a lot more risk involved. So when I was getting in the vehicle, the first thing I noticed is that there were actually some error codes on the dash, and that is an extremely bad sign. You want to stay away from dealers that just buy a car and instantly resell it, because that means they didn't do the due diligence to fix anything or address any of the problems the vehicle has. And if there's error codes, that means they didn't even clear them. So the problems are literally out in the open, and if you buy from them and you have some kind of issue, they're not going to help you, and it's just going to be sold as is like usual. So eventually you'll probably want to take a look at the engine bay. If the engine bay is dirty, run. The engine bay pretty much represents how good like the vehicle condition is, and if they don't clean the engine bay, then it pretty much means that the car really hasn't been taken care of. If you're seeing any signs of rust or damage of any kind, just run, because anytime you buy a vehicle, it doesn't have to have any issues. You can find something that works good, that is clean. If the vehicle is dirty, just run. Just don't even buy it. Don't even consider getting it. If you find out that the vehicle has any type of flood or water damage, like the one that I'm seeing here, there's all this green moss on the inside, there's literally water droplets everywhere inside the engine bay. I think this was a flooded vehicle from Florida. So you don't really want to be buying vehicles from the coast, because they have rust and body deterioration damage, and you don't want to buy vehicles that have been badly abused in Florida or have been in any kind of flood or anything like that. You start the engine up, you want to listen to it, hear the sound, see if anything sounds off. Play a normal sounding engine from like an online video, and then compare that to the engine that you're listening to while it's running, and look for any kind of leaks or anything, because after you've ran it for 5-10 minutes and even test driven it, you'll see if there's any leaks under the vehicle. Eventually the leaks will come out, and any type of bad patching or problems they're trying to hide will come out in the open. The longer you're interacting with the vehicle, you will find something eventually. A good dealership also tops up the fluids, like the brake fluid and the coolant. You want to make sure all that stuff is good. And the way you know it's good is you'll check the levels, like right on the actual container where the fluids are located. You'll check the levels, and you'll also look at the liquid itself. If the liquid looks like there's tiny little particles floating around inside and it's kind of translucent, and if the liquid doesn't look consistent to what the liquid's supposed to look like, then you'll know there's a problem. Look at the actual physical disc brakes, and you want to see if the disc brakes need to be replaced or not. You'll also want to check the actual physical pads of the brakes. Oftentimes what dealers will do is they'll buy a vehicle that might have good components, like it might have good brakes, and they'll just remove those good brakes, maybe put it on a different car, and then they'll try to sell you it with bad brakes or bad consumables, because a lot of components in the car actually over time eventually just die out and they break down. And if they know that somebody wants to buy a specific car, they might even try to switch out the components inside. One area you want to look for in terms of body damage is right below the vehicle, like near the perimeter, near the bottom, the closest part to the ground. You're looking for any type of curb rash. You can even ask them to patch up any type of curb rash that you see and touch it up, because if the paint is cracked or chipped, that will eventually become a much bigger problem. So you need to ask them to address that. Look at the history of the vehicle as well, like if they have any type of like Carmax or that kind of thing. Obviously, if the vehicle list price is too high or too low, there's something wrong. So when you're comparing the actual price, you want to compare it to all the so what you do is you go to a website like Auto Tempest. You'll do a quick search for the type of vehicle you're looking for, and you'll see all the pricing, and from there you'll determine the average price that the vehicle is sold for. Then you'll compare that price to the vehicle you're buying from at the specific dealer or private party. When it comes to badly abused vehicles, you will normally find those at dealerships, especially small-time dealerships. The larger the dealership, the safer your purchase is. However, sometimes you can find very, very good deals at small-time dealerships. After my Ford Focus got sold, I decided that I would look for a new vehicle, and I went to every single dealership in my town. I just ran from one dealership to the next. I spent about 2 days doing that, and that's how I was able to basically find a vehicle that I really liked. In the end, I ended up settling with a C7 from Carmax. It was 17K miles for $40,000, and it was in pretty good condition when I got it, so I really liked it. The only issue that it had was water droplets. A very good strategy to use to determine if the dealership is honest or not is to ask them, are there any problems with the vehicle? And if they say no, and you find extremely obvious problems, then you know that you can't trust the dealership. It's probably better to move on, because that'll mean that they'll probably try to hide things, and you don't want to work with untrustworthy dealerships. However, keep in mind that sometimes they're not very competent. They miss things also, and that's why it's best to just rely on your own analysis. If the vehicle is over 10 years old, they do not need to disclose how many actual miles it has. And that makes it kind of tricky, because the odometer disclosure system basically doesn't work past that. So if you're buying vehicles that are over 10 years old, you're going to have to be very savvy and know what to look for, because if it says it has 30,000 miles, it might have double or triple that. Older vehicles also get tampered with, and people roll back the odometers on those, so you'll basically be driving around in a ticking time bomb.
So they said that the car's in good working mechanical condition. There's no problems as far as they know. Well, this problem, this is going to drain your battery, so that's not true. So they freaking lied to me already. The tire pressure is all the PSI for the oil gauge looks a little low. I'm gonna have to look into that. They gave the car to me literally with no fuel, so I had to refuel it. Good thing they gave me some money for that. It seems like the heads-up display does not work. I'm very surprised. That's like one of the coolest features. Kind of surprised it's not working at all. Yeah, that's a kind of a deal breaker, I think, right there. The engine bay looked pretty terrible. There was literally like dirt and sand in there and stuff. Like, I can't believe how bad the engine bay was. There might even be a bit of a smell in here. Let's see. I think I'm smelling maybe some gasoline. It's kind of a big deal, I think. Okay, I'm turn that off. I'm going to try to listen to the engine a little bit more. See if I can hear anything. Instant fuel economy, range 92 miles. Okay, what about this? Tire pressure, rear. Yeah, so either the sensors are broken, they either lied about the sensors being broken in the tire, or the tire pressure is completely wonky. The tires are literally 4 years old, so that means they need to be replaced. So I'm not going to be paying for that. Screw that. So they better give me a discount on that. Oh, pressure 30. That's, I think that might be low. I'm gonna have to look into that. The temperature it better not go above 220, because that's not gonna be a good sign. I'm gonna take it out for a spin on the highway here, and I'm making sure that all the gauges and all the sensors are operating properly. Without that, I have no idea. I don't know if it's been, you know, taken care of or not, but from the looks of it, it looks like it hasn't been taken care of, which really sucks. And even though it's low miles, I mean, if it's in this kind of shape where there's tons of things fucking broken and shit, that is like a seriously bad sign. Let's see here, oil life fixed. So I thought I was smelling some gasoline even with the top down, but that could just be the area I'm driving in. So I'm gonna just take it out for another spin, 5-10 minutes, and we'll see what's going on with it. Yeah, so far it's pretty good. The drive, I mean, it drives great. But yeah, let's take a look and see what happens next. For the drive, I didn't hear anything. I don't smell anything. Everything seems to be fine. I think the transmission and the engine are probably okay, but there's still, I think, too many red flags. I'm gonna definitely back out. But yeah, the tire pressure is pretty. Oil pressure seems a little low on idle. I don't think it's supposed to be that low, but I'm gonna look into it again. The oil temperature was 230. That seems a little on the high side. I noticed that there was some patchwork that was done on the engine, which didn't look like it was done. The patchwork didn't look like it was done correctly, and the engine was just extremely dirty. So yeah, well, I mean, it was a fun little ride, but something like this is not worth 18K. I think this is probably maybe worth 15K. Because if I was to move forward, I'd take it to do a, you know, pre-purchase inspection, but I'm probably not even going to do that. It's not worth it. I'm just going to stick to getting a Corvette from the Corvette forum. I've been reading on there for the last couple of days, and basically you buy Corvettes from other members who create a detailed video log of everything and how they take care of their Corvette. They have all the records and everything, and so that's probably the best way to go about, because every time I find a decent deal, I'm always getting somehow. There is one more dealer I'm going to go to. He's more inner Portland. That Corvette seems like it was probably better taken care of, but we'll see. I'll update you once I know more. Because of the extremely high markup in used vehicles, if the dealership is not willing to fix at least some of the broken things that you find with the vehicle, then just go to another dealership, because the markup is so high already that they're just being too greedy, and you don't want to be dealing with dealerships like that. If you spend more than 2 to 3 hours at the dealership, that is just them slowing down the process to get your buy-in. Essentially, they want you to waste and commit to as much time as possible, so that way you have already you've sunk in so much time that you can't leave, and that makes you more desperate. So if you notice that they're taking too long, apply pressure on them, or just start to pretend like you're about to leave or something, and eventually they'll just give you the service that you need. I've actually left dealerships multiple times, and it's funny because the more times you come back, the better
negotiation power you have, unless they're being completely like mean to you or something. If that happens, just don't come back, because they will try to degrade you and bring you down and stuff. And they use all kinds of scammy tactics. Like what they'll do is they'll say, oh, okay, let me talk to my manager. They'll go in the back and they'll just sit around doing nothing, checking their phone, pretending like they're doing something, like they're talking to the manager, but they're probably not doing that at all. You never have to pay a down payment on a vehicle. That is literally what the dealership wants and not necessarily what the bank wants. Pretty much, if you have money, just keep it. You're better off keeping the money than giving it directly to the dealership. With the financing and how it is, usually you can get a pretty good rate on a vehicle. Unless the bank physically says that you need to do a down payment, you most likely don't. And if you can't get the terms you want from the specific bank you're working with, just find a different bank. There's plenty of banks that are sometimes low on customers and they're willing to drive very good APRs, like 2.99 APR on a used vehicle is pretty good. So keep your options open. Do not be in a rush. If you're being pressured, or if you're being hurried and you notice that, just take note of it, slow yourself down, and reorient yourself. When you go to the dealership, make sure you know exactly what you're getting and tell them exactly how much you want to pay. Because then you can take control of the buying process and not them. With how salespeople work, they want to take control, and you don't want to give them this control, because then they're going to slow things down, they're going to tack on extra fees, and then you're more likely to be manipulated by them. Keep in mind, they will try to tack on extra fees. When you come in through the door of the dealership, tell them, I want this exact vehicle for this exact price. Minus any repairs that you think the vehicle needs. And just be firm. If they say they can't do it, say, well, please, can you check with your manager? And do that 2 to 3 times. And then if they're not complying, then that's when you want to leave and check out a different dealership, because there's deals out there and you just have to find them. Do you need extended car warranties? No, you don't. Most of the time, you do not need that. The way insurance works with these extended warranties is that they have to make a profit on the extended warranty, and that's something that the dealership does. And they don't use OEM parts, and they usually don't even want to help you. It's usually considered a scam to do, so I would not do the extended warranties unless you have a very specific need and you know your specific car has a problem that will arise in the future. Like, for instance, if you go to carcomplaints.com, you can see every type of car and the type of problems that these cars have and at what mileage. So depending on which vehicle you're getting, if it has 30,000 miles, maybe it will encounter a problem at the 75,000 mile mark. Maybe the transmission needs to be replaced or something, whatever it may be. You just have to be on top of it and decide whether the extended warranty is right for you. If you do get one, try to make sure it's transferable, and if it's not transferable once the vehicle is sold, then make sure that you can get a refund on the unused portion of it, because that way you can at least you can have the coverage and have the peace of mind, but at least get a refund on the unused portions. But yeah, because they have to make a profit on those extended warranties, you're just paying a price premium, plus you're paying for something that might not even break in the first place. So it's tricky. And since you happen to be like an enthusiast of vehicles or technology, one of those, and since you've enjoyed this C7 Corvette review, there's a pretty good chance you'll enjoy the Acura NSX video that I have coming up right here. It's just a vlog of me meeting a mechanic who has an Acura NSX. This is an absolutely amazing vehicle. If you like Corvette, you're definitely gonna like the Acura NSX because it is in a class of its own. I wanted to thank you guys for watching. Definitely subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, that will let me know that I need to make more content like this. All right, guys, see you in the next video. Cheers.